just now new presenting, it's advisor of President of Russian Federation, Sergei Yuryevich Glazyev.
Спасибо, уважаемые коллеги. Я попытаюсь порассуждать на самую сложную проблему, которая здесь затронута была лишь отчасти.
Thank you, dear colleagues. I will try to speak on the issue related to the Russian issue, where the money are. We like to ask this question: where are the money for the belts of development, for corridors of development, for value-added accruement? How to implement these wonderful plans that you have drawn before us for sustainable development? The first presentation that we listened to, a rather interesting report that we have heard, it was said that we have the possibility that after financial crisis, the problems with excess of derivatives, with financial bubbles, with debts, would be exacerbated. If we assume that the crisis is global and financial, we have to state that all the elements of this crisis are there, not even in the state that they were in 2008, but they have increased. Obligations, debts, the derivatives increased, we reproduce financial bubbles, we see the collapse of a number of these bubbles. The money still cling to financial sector and stick there without getting to other segments of economy. So the research and sanation that has been done by major currency countries, the money do not reach the real sector. Large-scale modernization projects are not financed properly, and discrepancy between modernization of the real sector and expectations of financial sectors still grow.
Мы здесь, и банкиры на...
Our impression is that we here and the bankers are living in different worlds. So bankers are discussing banking's oversight issues, banking risk issues, capital sufficiency ratios. There's no connection between financial sector and real sector being discussed. What we are saying is not only uninteresting to them, but they don't understand what we are talking about because they don't have these issues in their Weltanschauung, in their worldview. Our impression is that everybody is waiting for something. So many people are saying that we should go over to project financing pattern. There was a brilliant presentation by our Italian colleague who said that the worldview of and outlook of our financial community should be changed, and they should be going over to funding development, and governments and states should be funding this and incentivize it, and bankers may be waiting for government incentives. But even the state, the government, borrowing a lot of money, continues to curtail budget expenditures, particularly for funding investment programs. Our Brazilian senator was very convincing when he talked about the collapse of the dollar pyramid, the crash of the financial system that has been operating until now. But some colleagues from Russia, supported by some, doubted that this crash has happened or occurred, and will have to live with two processes. One is the disintegration of the global financial system based on endless issuance of the dollar and the linked currencies like the pound sterling, Japanese yen, and European currency that occupied this niche, and that became a beginning of a new tendency, the emergence of new regional currencies. And we are told that Mercosur is on the verge of deciding to having its own reserve currency. The question arises, who will be funding the global investment project. We never got this financing from issues of older reserve currencies. The question, will the issuers of new reserve currencies will make sure that the money they issue will go to fund these added value chains. I don't think we'll see a financial oligarchy and major financial entities ready to invest readily into modernization of the global infrastructure. We're talking about the transition to a new technological mode involving many serious risks, a lot of uncertainty, and without active government incentives and support, modernization programs are not feasible. The thing is that the scale of required investment to master key manufacturing capacities of a new technological mode is not, in fact, within the capacity of even most developed countries. Who will pay for modernization? I think the answer is it is those entities who are linked to the issue of global money. If we talk about global infrastructure and its modernization, this can only be implemented using world currencies, who create a surplus of world money and currencies in the world markets. I want to go back to a familiar but forgotten idea of Tobin about the financial transaction tax. If such a tax is introduced, it's clearly that the major payers of this tax will be US financial speculators, to a lesser degree Japanese financial speculators, European, English. So the issuers of world currencies through Tobin financial transaction tax will contribute through this tax the proportionate contributions to solution of global issues. What are these global issues and problems? Interesting question, because to inspire the world financial oligarchy to finance and create a global mechanism, it's unlikely. We need to global issues that require the effort of the global community and its overall technical capacity. One exotic example, but anyway, well elaborated within the United Nations, planetary protection from cosmic threats, space threats. This task is global. No country is in a position to resolve this by itself. It requires strategic planning for the term of 50 years. It utilizes capacity of military-industrial complex. There is no research and technological solution. It requires from military-industrial complexes of various leading countries close cooperation. This will require a mechanism of trust which will prevent and impede an arms race where there's nothing to invest money into and the government requires a certain activity. The government goes into this new spiraling of the arms race. It's an understandable way to stimulate investment activity, invest money into modernization of the armed forces. And due to long waves of economic development, this leads to enhanced military threats. Such global tasks and problems I mentioned will enable us to create a mechanism of cooperation and trust and distribute the funding burden proportionately to the power of the participating entities. It should be banks linked to the centers of issuance of emissions of all the currencies like pound and dollar, and new like euro, maybe yuan, or maybe Mercosur, a currency. If the dollar accounts for 80% of the financial record, the most part of the transactions will be through taxation of speculations carried out by the US banks and financial companies. clearly to convince those who emit and issue world reserve currency would be difficult. I expressed this idea 15 years ago at OSCE, and the United States had a flood in New Orleans in those days, and it was clear that the US financial system, a very elaborate system of risk insurance, failed so miserably in remedying this and relief effort for that effort, and people had to stay there in New Orleans for several months at the time. And the US delegation at OSCE did not support this idea because they're in principle against financial transaction tax. The alternative is the collapse and disintegration of that financial system. If we want a harmonious combination of interests, we should try and convince the financial oligarchy or financial aristocracy to try and agree with this, because the alternative would be refusal of one group countries of another to use the dollar as a reserve currency, as a settlement currency and payment currency, and then the dollar as a reserve currency, and then a currency suitable for creative assets. And now a Brazilian speaker showed this clearly. Mercosur's goal is rejection of the dollar. If Russia does it, China does it, what is left of the world, the dollar system? We don't need a global financial disaster and catastrophe. I think that such like ideas should be actively debated, not on the expert level, but also a broader platform, and the dialogue of civilizations could initiate getting these issues back into the political